We will call this meeting of the Del Mar College Board of Regents to order at 1 p.m. on Tuesday, April 11th. We are back at the Center for Economic Development. Welcome back to our regular home. We look forward to opportunities to visit all of our campuses, but we're back. We appreciate being in our regular boardroom. Going to call the roll. I'm going to do it in reverse seniority order, so be ready. Dr. Babley. Here. Mr. Cruel. Here. Mr. Loeb.
Here. Mr.
Kelly.
Here.
Dr. Turner.
Here.
Mr. Garza. Here. Ms. Averett.
Here.
And Dr. Adami.
Here.
I'm Carol Scott. We have a complete quorum, a unanimous group of outstanding individuals with us today, and we are ready to begin our meeting. Would you all please join me in a moment of silence? Thank you. Mr. Loeb, would you lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance? We don't have a flag. Can we pledge in absentia? We can. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will rectify that. When in the renovations to this room, we didn't get quite all of our decor back.
I'll just point out the Continental Army didn't have the flag back then, so they did okay.
Thank you very much, sir. Please join us in reading the Del Mar College Vision Statement. Del Mar College will be the premier choice for life-changing educational opportunities provided by responsive, innovative faculty and staff who empower students to improve local and global communities. Del Mar College is streaming live audio and video from our official Board of Regents meetings on the college's website in real time, with the exception of portions of the meeting considered as closed session by statute. We now have the opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone here from the public to comment on any item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will move. We don't have any recognitions today, so we are going to start our meeting today with our Student Success Report. Dr. John DeHalcom is going to give us some information on our Nursing Success Center. I'm going to ask you to turn on your mic.
I thought it was, there we go. Okay. Madam Chair, Dr. Escamilla, Regents, thank you for taking time today to listen to about the Nursing Success Center. It looks like we don't, okay, there we go. We're missing some images up here. Are we okay to proceed?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, all right. So the Nursing Success Center has become an integral part of success among the nursing program and its students. Starting in 2011 to 2013, the Department of Nurse Education was one of the 27 ADN and BSN nursing programs in Texas that participated in the statewide at-risk tracking and interventions for nurses, also called SATIN, which expanded the earlier work of the Stephen F. Austin Nursing Student Retention through planned, proactive, intrusive interventions. The nursing peer tutor service grew from this work. Funding for nursing peer tutors was provided by the Del Mar College Success Center on the East Campus and a Title V grant funding on the West Campus. Today, the Success Center continues to fund one of our nursing peer tutors, the remainder of employees of the Department of Nursing Education and the Nursing Success Center are on the Windward campus. Now, as each cohort of nursing students was admitted to Del Mar College, the nursing students completed an online risk assessment survey as they started level 1 semester. Dr. Greg Miller at Stephen F. Austin University completed the at-risk profile for Del Mar College Department of Nursing for each nursing student. From this list of at-risk students, nursing faculty at Del Mar College implemented 2 types of interventions as part of the SATIN grant. The first was online interventions, second was on-site interventions. In addition, the faculty selected a nursing textbook to help in strategies for testing success. So for nursing students, nursing faculty use standardized definitions from the Stanton grant. They use on-track, off-track, out-of-the-program type definitions. So the Nursing Success Center has helped those students that are most at risk. Now, the person that oversees the Nursing Success Center is with us today, Elizabeth Barone, and our nursing department chairperson, Dr. McWaugh, is here as well. Now, okay. So you can see the Nursing Success Center is well used. They have faculty coach sessions, recordings with a faculty coach, peer tutoring study sessions, study rooms, printing, and a Zen room, which I have yet to try, but I'm very tempted at the end of the week, or even on Monday, I'm tempted to use a Zen room, so I'll have to go visit that. But anyway, you can see the next year, 2022 to 23, now we have BSN students who are utilizing these services. Now, we have many success centers across the campus, and we know for sure that the Nursing Success Center is very productive. They identified at-risk students, they did the interventions, and one of the hardest courses, I understand the nursing program, which is the Health Care Concepts course. A lot of students are at risk of failing it, but 83% of those students, because there was intervention and they visited the Nursing Success Center, they were able to succeed in that course. So we're really proud of our Nursing Success Center in providing what our nursing students need to be successful here at Del Mar College. I want to thank you for allowing us to highlight this program, and as I mentioned, Liz Barone and Dr. McWaugh are here if you have any questions about this Success Center and any other interventions they do or any more about this success.
Do we have any questions from board members? Is the Zen room available for Board of Regents members as well? Anybody can go to the Zen room? There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate all that you do and appreciate the leadership from our nursing program. We're going to move on to our college president's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regents and everyone else out in the audience today, I'm going to keep my report short. I'm going to talk about three particular dates. March 21st, we had the Texas Association of Community Colleges Executive Committee. Those meetings continue to become more regular during the legislative session, and we'll have a debrief once we get through a few other momentous dates, including this morning, a little further as things develop with our impending legislation. On the next day was Del Mar College Day at the Capitol, March 22nd. I want to thank all the faculty and staff who came out, regents and others who came and celebrated Del Mar College and had a wonderful display of our programs and so forth at the Capitol. It was a great day and a half or so celebrating Del Mar College. Appreciate everyone's efforts there. Look forward to the next one. The next one was April 1st through the 4th, which was, I guess, the weekend before last. I attended the American Association of Community Colleges in Denver, Colorado. That is the annual conference for specifically presidents, but other executive members as well. Myself and Ms. Patricia Dominguez attended, and so much new information out there going on. I did participate in a presentation on change management as well. But anyway, that concludes my report. I said I'd keep it short and sweet. Thank you.
Any questions for Dr. Escamilla? Seeing none, we're going to ask Ms. Mary McQueen to come up and start our staff reports by giving us a legislative update. Drum roll, please.
Oh, there it is. Hello. Maybe.
Maybe not. You okay?
Oh, you use the keyboard?
Yeah, but you can use that, it's fine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so a lot of this is going to be just maybe I'm just going to, there we go. So basically, this is information you've seen before. The two updates I have for this particular page is, as of today, 7,960 bills were actually filed. And these are the ones being monitored. There's no change, but right now we're looking at about 650 that we're monitoring, and you can see those different areas. The ones we're looking at most are the high impact, so the 121. Obviously, the most important ones are House Bill 1 and HB 1 and these different areas. The priority focus, again, this is what we've been doing and looking at, and this is what's been approved by this, this board. And in addition, so what I basically did was update it and said, okay, of those different areas, here's the bills associated with each one of these initiatives. And then the most important things, obviously, House Bill H, which did pass this morning at about 11:43. So it went to engrossment. I had to look that up. Just basically means it goes to the next House, or it goes to the next committee, so we'll go to the Senate. We had approximately, actually we ended up at about 87 authors or co-authors. It's been signed. We have a support. All of this really doesn't matter. All of this verbiage up there doesn't matter, because the truth is it passed. So it's going to the Senate. So all the supporting materials basically meant that we were doing the job, and everyone knew exactly how important this particular bill was for community college finance. The other things we're looking at, these particular ones, this is community college IT credentials. So it basically creates a way in which community colleges, in association with associate's degrees, can address the IT shortages. Normally these jobs require baccalaureate degrees, but if you can do the associates in conjunction with a number of certifications, then it's enabling these individuals to get jobs in an area, particularly in the state, where they normally would have to get a baccalaureate degree. Because there's so much of a shortage right now, the state needs to address that shortage by shortening the time from graduation to employment.
Mary, may I jump in there? We've been
Yes, sir.
saying this a long time, and it was State Representative Capriglione, I believe, out of Fort Worth, that put this piece of legislation together. But for years and years and years, Jessica, Ali, you all know that the skill sets that our students are coming out with and the experiences that we're giving them puts them light years ahead of those people and had to wait for their bachelor's degrees. Finally, we have folks that are stepping up and supporting us to waive that requirement to get people into the workforce faster. It's about time, but it's a great testament to the community colleges, and I'm just going to say Del Mar College does an exceptional job at preparing our students for that as well. Thank you.
It does. This could very well be the first bill that is passed by the 88th legislature. It's already gone through the House, and it's been received by the Senate and is in committee right now. The TEOG grants, those are things that address our students and the financial aid that they need. Most importantly, it addresses using Pell Grant awards to match what the TEOG provides. Most people don't realize this, but when our students get a TEOG award, the college has to find a way to match it, which means either the college has to match it or they have to go to the foundation. This allows Pell Grants to match it, and that's a huge move forward for our students. Clinical nursing sites, this one's passed the Senate, and it's really important because the clinical nursing sites, in fact, any of the health sciences nursing sites for clinical component of the program is very critical. And if we have someone that comes, in this particular case, from out of state that's a for-profit, and they utilize those clinical sites, we have less chance of the students in our programs, community colleges throughout the state, and four-year institutions, public institutions, then they have to fight for those clinical. And the hours already are so limited. So we didn't want to, we're hoping that everything goes through and it preserves those so that our, those students that are enrolled in public, Texas public higher education programs get priority, or at least there is some discussion before automatically allowing someone else to take that very, very high important site. The Texas Transfer Framework, again, the framework is there. What we didn't have was empowering legislation that said this is what will happen if you don't follow the law. So that one's really important to empower the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board with actions that they can say, wait a minute, we have legislation, you have to accept these transfer courses. So that's real important for us. And then SB1 and HB1. HB1 was voted out of appropriations on Thursday. All of the education, Article 3 education amendments, none of them that went through affected the $650 million for community colleges, and that's really all we were looking at this particular time. And SB1 is in the Finance Committee. Here are some of the other components that we're looking at. The Lone Star Workforce, again, another really great bill that looks at supporting workforce development. These funds would actually go through TWC, if I'm correct. So these are some of the things that we're looking at and monitoring. All of these are Texas State Technical College expansions. So those are the different counties at which they're looking at expanding. The one that's more important to us is House Bill 3048, which would, at this point, allow these programs, allow these TSTCs to offer programs in community college service areas without notice to the community colleges or the Texas Education Coordinating Board approval. So that's the one we're watching mostly. Anybody else who's in these counties, they're watching the other ones. These are both higher institutions. They are both workforce creation programs that are supported by the state of Texas. What we're trying to make sure is we don't fight one another for students and duplicate expensive programming in education, particularly workforce education. I'm not going to go into these. These are your background. I just provided the next slides that is your ongoing background for this is what the recommendations are. Here's what Texas community colleges have. Here's the access to higher education. And then here is the different pieces for the Texas Commission on Community College Finance. Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I do want to let the Board of Regents know that our two state associations, the Texas Association of Community Colleges and the Community College Association of Texas Trustees, have to be given a great deal of credit for shepherding these bills through. The lack of opposition is directly related to the work that TAC and CAD have done to keep all 50 community college districts rowing in the same direction. We're all in the same boat. We're all rowing in the same direction, and that cannot go unnoticed when a major piece of legislation on the House calendar passed this morning in under 2 minutes, may have been under a minute, but it was laid out. There was a call for questions, no questions. They moved for adoption, and they adopted on a voice vote and moved it to engrossment. So it's incredible to have that kind of work on behalf from our state association. So I just want you to know that the work that we do and involvement in our state association has resulted in this kind of unprecedented support for our legislative agenda across the state. Still a lot of work to do. There's a long way till sine die, but I just wanted to give credit to our associations for the hard work that they're doing. So, any questions?
One last piece you'll find in a folder. These pieces. These are the 4 pieces that we had. Well, 3 additional pieces that we had created for Del Mar Day in Austin. If you'll notice, they're great. What I call view book of each campus, and then we have one just for continuing education. It was a great way to show what we're doing and how important all these different areas of education and what kind of jobs you can get with those. These are now going over to the student recruitment offices, and these will now be recruitment pieces that they'll be able to use. Other than that, that concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mary. Our next staff report is a first discussion for us on the potential for a Bachelor of Applied Science. I'm going to ask Dr. Escamilla to introduce this topic, and then we'll turn it over to Dr. Halcomb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regents, today we want to introduce the idea and the work that has been done, of which there's plenty, work done by the college to move forward with a proposal for a Bachelor of Applied, our next Bachelor of Applied Science in Organizational Management and Leadership. This program has again received a lot of attention. A lot of hard work has gone into the preparation of what you're about to be presented. Today is introductory, and we want you to know that I want you to know that the faculty have been very interested in moving this forward. I think that's a very subtle way of putting it. They've been asking me to do this for a long time, almost at least a year or more, most recently. And I want you all to know, as part of the overall discussion, that the reason why it's coming today and hasn't come sooner was because we were moving in accord with Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, Commission on Colleges, otherwise known as SAC-COC, our accrediting body, and with their advice and recommendations. And that advice and recommendation was that we would get our first program, the BSN program, going up and running as it is and doing well, and then follow up with the next. So I want you to know that we have been moving forward with great restraint, anxious and positive restraint, and very purposeful restraint. So today, what you're about to hear is a concept that's fairly old. It's several years old in terms of, and even longer, I guess you could say. But it's the next opportunity for the college to move forward as a level 2 granting, bachelor's granting institution by way of our accrediting body. That being said, Dr. Halcomb and Dr. Schrammick will present the data that we have so far.
Thank you. Madam Chair, Regents, Dr. Escamilla, thank you for allowing time today and the opportunity to discuss this proposal. A group of faculty and staff, as Dr. Escamilla indicated, worked very diligently since 2021 to develop this proposal. Those individuals included Dean Schrammick, who's standing beside me, Davis Merrill, Dan Corris, Dr. Charles Campbell, Dr. Sydney Sambi, Dr. Angelica Gomez-Johnson, and business department faculty. So we had a large group working on this for quite some time. Dean Jennifer Schrammick will also be a co-presenter today. We are proposing a Bachelor's of Applied Science in Organizational Management and Leadership, which we will refer to as the BAS-OML degree throughout the presentation. Now, why do we want this degree? Well, we have a lot of students that have AAS degrees, and they become stackable into Bachelor or BAS-OML. And so we can further their education. It also adds business knowledge to complement those technical skills that they have learned from the AAS degree. To earn an AAS degree at this institution, typically students take 15 semester credit hours of core courses and 45 technical courses. Now, with the BAS degree, they would need to have an additional 27 semester credit hours of core, 33 semester credit hours in the major courses within the BAS-OML degree, and so the total award at the end would be 120 credit hours. Now, how would students get into the program? What would be the admission requirements? We have general admission here at Del Mar College. They would have to meet TSI, our Texas Success Initiative requirements. We do that now. They must complete an approved AAS degree or at least be within 15 semester credit hours of completion and have a cumulative GPA of 2.0. Now, as a reminder, here are a group of the AAS degrees that we currently do offer. We have over 55 AAS, Associate of Applied Science degrees. These are some of them. These would be stackable into the Bachelor of Applied Science OML degree. I am now going to ask Dean Schrammick to go ahead and discuss pathways to career advancement that students will have and results of surveys that the group did over the last 2 years.
Good afternoon. So we put together a sample of a few of the different pathways to career advancement. So for example, if a student were to obtain their welding degree and then they begin to work in the field, as they come back and they were adding the credits of the BAS OML degree, they could be promoted to a foreman position or a project manager position as they accumulate more experience, potentially up to a general manager or an owner in that field of welding. For another example, we looked at the public services like fire, police, EMS, and paramedic. If they were to add the BAS OML to their AAS degree, they could advance to the position of lieutenant or captain, and then with more experience, advance to a position such as assistant chief or chief. And then with process technology, if the student obtains their AAS and gets that experience in the field, they can become a supervisor in that field, and then later a plant manager as well. So these are just a sampling of a few of the different paths that a student might take. On the right-hand side, you see area employers. These are industry partners that we are currently working with, and they have voiced support through surveys and through discussions that we've had through them in different environments. And they also hire our graduates. So the committee thought it was very important to have stakeholder feedback before we moved forward with the proposal. One of the things that we did was we surveyed students who were currently in AAS degree offerings. We sent surveys out to 1,870 students, and 281 students responded with a 15% response rate. 84% of the responding students said that they would consider enrolling in a BAS OML program. Of the 16% who said that that was not their chosen pathway, several of those students still voiced their support for offering the program for students that it matched more appropriately with their major. Then we also surveyed workforce partners, and we had 41 workforce partners responded. 78 responded that this degree would be valuable to their current and future employees. 63% noted that they offer tuition assistance for employees to advance their careers. And 53% responded that they have current employees needing a bachelor's degree so that they could advance within that organization. And then we also had stakeholder feedback from workforce advisory committees, secondary institutions, the Texas A&M University Corpus Christi leadership in the College of Business, and DMC employees who all had positive feedback for the initiative after the proposal was explained to them. In addition to the quantitative feedback, our committee thought it was important to have qualitative feedback as well, and we wanted to hear the student voice. So I captured 4 quotes that came out of the surveys that we did with our students. One person noted that they're a wife, a mother, and a multi-business owner, and they thought that this degree would greatly improve their life and their skills. Another noted that it didn't matter what field that they entered, that organizational management and leadership are important skills to have. A third noted that a Bachelor of Applied Science degree would be a huge step in the right direction for them and their family, and would provide great opportunities to make themselves and their family proud. And the 4th student that I noted had said that this would open opportunities for advancement with their current employer, as well as the financial incentives to move up and become a leader or manager of the department.
Thank you, Dean Schrammick. As noted in this slide, there are several other community colleges that have this degree: Brazosport, Laredo, Midland, Odessa, and South Texas. You can see they have good enrollment numbers. Now, Midland and Odessa are very close together, probably only a 20-minute drive, so I think you can see the need in that environment. when you add the totals from both of those institutions, with Odessa just more recently opening their program. Now, Texas A&M University Corpus Christi does have Bachelor's of Applied Arts and Sciences degrees, as well as Texas A&M University Kingsville. You can see they're slightly different degrees. Applied Leadership would be the one that is more closely associated. We recently looked at transfer data from those institutions, from our students going to their institutions. We did not see a significant number of Del Mar College students transferring into the Bass degrees at these two institutions. Having the Bass program, the degree here at this institution, would allow for seamless transition for those students that are in the AAS program to get their bachelor's degree. And so great continuity of instruction would happen. Here are some of the program student learning outcomes, and I won't read all of them word for word, you have them here, but executing management leadership principles, of course, and exploring technology, human resource functions, marketing plans, accounting methods, financial decisions, business law concepts, strategic business proposals, and also applying soft skills. Those are all part of our student learning outcomes for this degree. Now, what are the courses that we would add to our institution? Now, all of these courses that you see on the slide are in the coordinating board inventory. Now, once we do approve to submit the Bass OML degree to the coordinating board, we also submit the courses to be added to our inventory. So you can see we have marketing for managers, accounting, etc. So we would add quite a few courses, which is very consistent with the other Bass degrees throughout the state at community colleges. We do have faculty already qualified to teach these courses. According to the coordinating board and our SAC-COC accrediting body, faculty must have 18 graduate hours in the discipline in addition to a master's degree. We have many faculty that meet those qualifications. Now, at the present time, we're saying that we would like to teach these courses online. We can teach face-to-face as well. That's not ruled out. However, many of our students with AAS degrees have very demanding jobs, and they're high demanding jobs in this area, and they want to advance and get the bachelor's degree, so doing it online would allow them to work on things outside of their normal work hours. So that's why we're proposing more of the online approach at the moment. But we will add face-to-face if the demand is there from our students, of course. Now, this is what we
Dr. Halpern,
project.
can you
Oh.
take questions now?
Sure,
Dr. Turner?
absolutely.
I just have a quick one. Since you you're promoting an online program, is it going to be built as a part-time program, or are you going to have it layered, or? So I was just wondering, especially if you're going to, tie it in with working families, working folks.
Typically, our students take about 6 hours a semester, and so we've looked at that in analysis. So students could take it full-time if they want, or they can do part-time.
Okay.
We would advise them appropriately depending upon their situation, their home environment, or their work environment.
All right, so you have kind of like two designs, one
Yes.
for, all right, thank you.
Yes, we do. So we hope that the enrollment would be something like what you've seen here, where year one, we anticipate about 30 students, year two, 45, and so on to year five, about 90. We base these numbers on what other institutions of similar size are receiving for enrollment. Now, as far as budget, we want to see what is the cost of having this Bass OML degree. First, you can see the revenues would generate about $1,964,768. We would not, and when we look at the cost categories, we would not hire full-time faculty. We'd rely more on adjuncts overload those first 3 years. So the cost would not be terribly high. And you can see after a 5-year period, it's estimated to have a cost of $536,000 with net revenue of $1,428,768. Now, that's with the current funding model. So, did you want to address that?
Yes. Did you have it on the next slide? I didn't want to steal the thunder. I didn't
Well,
get past.
I just was going
Just
to
keep
do
going.
a
Just-
summary.
yeah, let's keep going.
That, also we would derive income from Common Core courses because the students would be required to do more core. So if you look at the income from that, our net difference would be $2,498,472.
So I'll jump in. A question that was posed last time, Madam Chair, you asked if under the new finance model, if the bachelor's degrees would be funded differently, and the answer is yes. Significantly higher reimbursement is the proposal right now from the community college, the Commission on Community College Finance, and HB 8. It's a significant amount higher than even an associate degree as is proposed, and as we saw today, was voted on and successfully passed. Numbers are still, I hesitate to roll out the numbers that I have because they're undeveloped at this point, but a significant amount of resources will be, the state values these credentials, and they're showing such with their finances, so. Sorry? Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. You have a
Hang on a
question?
second.
Sorry. Now, do the bachelor's programs, like the nursing, do they have different tuition rates?
No, ma'am.
Same tuition rate, so it would be, even if we had a similar program at TAMU, this would be more affordable for those students?
Very much more affordable. The state was felt very strongly a few sessions back when they opened up the opportunities for bachelor's degrees to be offered by community colleges, that that there would not be a variable rate above what their regular charges were. So yes, an affordability factor for sure.
I can remember when we were talking about the nursing program that if there's another 4-year institution offering the same degree, we have to get their permission to do that?
No, sir.
Okay.
So, what you do is, what we've done is we've talked to the area colleges or regional universities especially. We continue to talk to them. I think at A&M Corpus Christi, I think we've reached the dean's level, vice president's level. I know that I've spoken to the president in Kingsville and apprised him of this program. I know that their institutions do offer a version of it. It's a BAAS degree. It's a little bit different. It's not duplicating per se. It's a different type of degree with a different inventory of courses. But we do continue to talk to them and discuss this. Over the years, we have asked that they be our partner in this and that we position ourselves for our students to go there. And as was presented and talked about earlier, that just doesn't gain traction. The BAAS degree, frankly, is not an area that is, I don't want to say strength, but it's just not an area emphasized by the universities. Therefore, does not give, and historically has not given our students the ability to transfer at the rates that we believe they should, had they had the opportunity. I try to put that as politically correct as I possibly could, and I'm looking forward to having conversations with our colleagues over there, especially over in Corpus Christi. Like I said, I met with the president and vice president last couple of weeks ago, and this was front and center because we knew we were going to come here today. So no, you don't ask permission, you work with them as best you can, and we have been doing that for a long time. It's just not an area that not many universities take off with.
Okay, so we wouldn't anticipate opposition then?
So I think there's always opposition, maybe not opposition, maybe interest. I know there's still interest out there in partnering in the BAAS degree, where students can go there. We will gladly send our students there. But we're talking especially about students with terminal, what historically have been terminal degrees at the two-year institution, AAS degrees. Those are students that would have to, in order to move over to these university programs, really stack up and do a lot more shoring up in courseware and taking extra courses. Ours is the most efficient model for our students, and that's really what we're presenting here. Certainly, if there's students going out there and looking for BAAS degrees, University of Incarnate Word is another one that had historically been taking those on. Continues to do, I think, the best job here locally. But even they have gone online and changed their course sequencing up as well. I hope that explains things. It does. This has been going on a long time. Yep. And this is this is really presenting an option for our students that, when you're able to get a process technology degree and in a relatively short period of time, in a most affordable manner, move towards a bachelor's degree, therefore translating into a leadership role, that's a very different career path for individuals. And when they're already doing as well as they're doing with a two-year degree, you put this on there, pound for pound, with the efficiency and the amount of money that they can make and the type of living that they can make, it's a value that just doesn't exist in this region.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Madam Chair, I have a comment and also a question to the President. So having seen the vast programs development from the Texas A&M Corpus Christi side as a provost, I can see this is a very unique, strategically positioned degree for Del Mar College, and I love the concept and the imagination behind this. Particularly incorporating the ethics into the core. I think that is very unique for this as such. Universities don't really emphasize the ethical aspects of business decision making. It's just taken for granted. It's not that they're less ethical. It's just that, it's taken for granted. But here you're pronouncing it. You're stating it into your programmatic vision of how ethical decision making is part of that curriculum. So I really admire that. And so my question is there a room for internships in this degree? Not a mandatory internship, but optional if students want to do an internship in the business environment. And related to that, can you count a work experience portfolio into the degree program? Is there a room for that? Because we're now looking at students who already graduated with a two-year degree from here, are working already there for several years, coming back to finish this kind of a degree, baccalaureate level. They can bring a work experience portfolio to gain some credits, because of their valuable work experience. So internship, work experience, are there any room or accommodation for those kind of things?
I think we always look at work experience, but we have to have, according to our accrediting body, a certain method of assessment to be able to do that. So we would have to work that into our proposal.
That's good.
I'd like to add, Regent Beverly, that the two things. Internships will be emphasized and practicums with House Bill 8 as well. There will be new grant dollars like never before statewide that we can get creative with and that have to do with exactly what you're talking about. The part about ethics and employing ethics and being unique in the curriculum really, I think, has to do with our responsibility, our requirements, rather, for having advisory committees for these programs already. And so we're oftentimes being advised in these programs, these AAS degree programs especially, by individuals in the field that have ample, tremendous work experience and credentials of all sorts. And so I add that as another layer to all of this. These programs are bolstered by the community programs, and adding a bachelor's component to it, to that is just another layer on top of, I think, a unique opportunity that doesn't, I'm guessing here, that doesn't exist with the BAAS degrees. And so we are in tune with our local industrial partners and health professional programs as well. Let's just say our business partners, like nobody else, because of that.
Thank you.
I've got, are you finished with the presentation?
Not yet.
Okay.
Okay.
After you finish, I got some questions.
Okay, we're ready.
I do too. I will.
Okay. What are the benefits of this degree? Well, as we've mentioned, the students that have taken or completed AAS can be stacked into this BAS OML degree. It adds business knowledge to complement the technical skills, and Dean Schrammick already discussed some of the potential positions that the students could move into in the workplace. It increases enrollment in our core courses, enhances our Associate of Applied Science overall enrollment, retention, and graduation rates increase as well. Provides convenient and affordable option, which we've already talked about. And I think affordability is a big factor for our students. So where are we right now? The proposal did go to the curriculum committee, and as a reminder, our Del Mar Curriculum Committee is comprised of faculty from 16 departments. We have at least one faculty. It is an important component of our accreditation body that we have faculty involvement in any of our curriculum decisions. So they voted right away to go forward with this proposal. Our next steps, of course, would be presenting to you in the future for approval of this degree. Then we would need approval from the coordinating board, and then SACS COC. And I know that on the committee we have our liaison for SACS, Dr. Sambi, who already is aware of everything. And yes, I think she's back there. Yes, thank you, Sydney. And so she's fully aware, and I know she's ready to go whenever we get the green light. We would like to start this in fall of 2024 if possible. So it's really, we want to answer all your questions. We want to do more research if you find that we need to do research in any one area. So we're ready for that. So now, if you have some questions, but I do thank you for your time today. Yes.
Thank you. So I think my first one is, and we've kind of already touched on it, but I want to try to summarize it. So, there's of course people who are concerned that we'd be duplicating with one of the universities, and I guess our program is designed as a mid-career amp up. So you can come back if you're doing well and your boss says, hey, we'd really like to make you a supervisor, but you don't have a bachelor's degree. They can come back, and it's kind of works out like a double major where they have their technical degree, but then they have a business degree as well. So whereas the university's degree is you show up when you're 18, you do 4 years, you graduate with that, and their technical training side of that degree is different fields than what we offer typically. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes.
One thing, though, that I thought of when kind of looking at this is I've been a little bit involved with the business school over there with their new dean and how they're reforming everything, and there may be an opportunity for us to work with them a little bit on sharing classes, sharing professors, and maybe even offering them our technical training for some of their degree programs, because I know they're really trying to reorient their what's it called? The Economic Development Center, their incubator, to be more technical oriented than it has been. And also, the next step after this for a lot of our students would be a executive MBA or a full MBA. And so it might be an opportunity for us to work with them and create a pathway so after they're done with us, if they're going senior management, they can go over there and they've already gotten some experience.
So those options are on the table.
Okay.
We have put them on the table as recently as last year, and we're waiting to hear back. And
Okay.
we're waiting, and we're waiting. And this goes back 3 deans ago in the College of Business over there that I've been going back to them over and over. So I don't mean to be, it sounds harsh. I'm just trying to be real with everyone here, especially you all as Regents. We have been working on this for a very long time. And then, and still, we keep that on the table. I just met with Dr. Vela and Dr. Silva, both, the other day. They were here over at Oroso Creek campus for a nickel tour that I gave them, and breakfast, I might add. And I explained this to them, and so I say, I don't know if it's not an or, it's an and, because I think the BAAS students that would transfer could very well be coming out of the military with applied experience and other things. It really becomes a different group of students. This program being able to reach, when you're able to put, there's not a, let me see, I think the only bachelor's of welding out there is like at Ohio State. And I know that's not what this is. But the opportunity for a welder, for instance, to reach down to, and I know some personally that are in our school, in our college right now that could benefit from these opportunities. There are no, for them to make the leap to the BAAS degree is a very different leap than an OML, is that right, OML? Yes, OML degree with us. There's still different types of students that can best benefit. So I would go back to say it's an and with the universities. It's just doesn't have a lot of traction. I got a verbal commitment from A&M Kingsville, and they are saying that they're going to position and try to carry the conversation forward. And I think, and we believe strongly, that we are providing this service for again, a different group of students, even from that group of students. Yes, Dean Schrammick.
If I may add too, at A&M Corpus, we do have one of the, I believe his title is Assistant Dean over the College of Business, sits on our advisory committee for the Management AAS and the Accounting AAS. So they're very familiar with the proposal. They've toured our sites. They had to understand it first because it's very different than their BBA. But once they understood it, brought in those technical credits, they gave us their support. And I talked to them as recently as today. So.
Great. Couple other things. If someone was a sophomore over there and had done basically all of our business side and wanted to transfer here and get this degree by taking the technical, basically doing it backwards, could they do that?
So I did talk to our sex liaison here in the room and was asking her that question today. And I think it would be looking at what transferred in and then looking at what additional credits we would need to get them. Likely they would come core complete. And so then it would be less, yes, like getting the technical credits and then moving on with the senior level OML courses.
Okay. And then I guess conversely, they could take everything there except the technical and then come to us and take the technical. And then I guess they would get whatever they got from them and then the technical from us.
Correct.
Okay. I noticed we have a very high percentage of employers that offer some sort of tuition assistance. I think we need to figure out a way to publicly recognize those employers when they do that. And we also need to find a subtle way to tell the minority that are not doing that they are the minority. And maybe that's a discussion for our board retreat. But I think, telling people at graduation that an employer, these are the employers that did tuition reimbursement for the graduates this year, giving them a sticker that said, hey, you know, they can put it on the window of their business that says we pay for our employees. Because I think every time I hear from an employer who says, well, I'm having really a lot of trouble finding qualified people, I ask them, I said, well, do you do tuition reimbursement for your employees? And I'd say 95% of the time they say no. And I say, well, you need to start doing that. And so I think we need to have a conversation that's larger, that's making that an expectation that that employers should do that. What was my last thing? I can't think of my last thing, but I'll let others go and then.
We can come back to you.
Okay.
I know Mr. Garza has a question, and then Regent Abrams when she comes back.
Well, first, I want to make a comment. I think that this expanding and giving some upward mobility or some upward training on some of our AS programs, I think would be great for those students that kind of wonder whether they're going to do the 2 years, maybe get a job, but that may not be where they want to end up, and finding that there's no, feeling like some part of it may have been a waste of time to get to where they actually want to get. I also think for them to have different, I'll say like kind of like Baskin Robbins, to have different flavors that they can choose from. One of them's going to find, they're going to find something that they're going to like, that fits what they're looking to do in life, at least at the beginning and in the middle, and then and maybe at the tail end. The only question, and I'm not sounding negative, but I know that we just approved a few years back the Bachelor in Nursing program, and I know going back a few pages, we talked about the numbers that we were projecting that we might be able to get in terms of students for these type of programs. Can we look and get some numbers on the nursing program and how many students have actually taken advantage of our Bachelor of Science in Nursing program to see that we've had some success, or the type of success that at least we initially planned for or projected for?
Sure. We have Dr. McQuah here she's the chairperson of the Department of Nursing Education, and she can address some of those questions.
Great.
Good afternoon. We're in our second cohort right now. I'll back up and start with our first cohort, which began in the fall of 21, coming out of COVID. And we had anticipated a starting cohort of 25 to 30, and we ended up starting a cohort of 18.
Okay, that's still good.
That was the first cohort. Our second cohort right now, we started with 14, and we're down to 13 students right now. So we were just approved by our accrediting body, which is ASIN, to start a second admission period. So up to this point, we've had one admission period each year, which is the fall. And starting next spring, we'll start a second admission period, which is really helpful for our students who graduate our ADN program in May and August. Instead of having to wait a full year to come in, they can hopefully, get into the next spring semester or spring admission. So.
And there's different nature. The programs have different restrictive natures. The nursing has a very restricted number of seats. There are no restrictions on this other side. So that's a different.
Okay.
It's a different parameters there. I'll also add that I know we had our first graduation group go through of the 18, I believe.
Correct.
The 18 all went through that first year. The other thing too, I know that Alamo, the entire district of Alamo as a comparison, had 17 their first year, and they were celebrating that. It's a lot to be celebrated. It's an evolutionary process, but again, when you open it up to many different programs, you're talking about a capacity that's very different. And so we're not restricted by the
Right.
Okay, so maybe it's not logical to compare apples and oranges in terms of nursing and against some of the applied sciences. Would it make sense, or would it be beneficial to maybe take surveys in some of our applied science programs to see if there's some interest from the students to continue, or at least have an option to continue some of the programs?
So we conducted that survey in spring of 22 before we went to the curriculum committee, and that's where we had, I believe the number was 84% of the students indicated that they would be interested in continuing. A couple of differences also in the nature of the programs. With nursing, they have to complete their ADN associate's degree in nursing, plus they have to be core complete, so that brings them up to 90 hours, versus in the proposal that we have now, they would only have to come in with the 60 from the AAS degrees. In addition, ours would have continuous enrollment, where nursing can only, at this point, enroll in the fall. Ours is an 8-week program, so they would be able to enroll for an August start, an October start, January, et cetera.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Appreciate your answers.
Things are similar.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you.
Regent Averett had, and then we'll come to you, Mr. Kroll. Oh, gotcha. You had it open a second ago. Mr. Kroll.
Yeah, from the slides, it sounded like the technical courses would be available online, but there's additional core courses that are necessary. Are those going to be available online also? Okay, whole
Yes.
program then would be available online.
The way it's planned right now, however, if the students do need face-to-face, then we will do face-to-face as well. Right now, yes, on the slide, it said that we would do online.
Well,
But that's the part after the Associate of Applied Science degree.
From my view, a lot of these are people who are already working, have families and
Yes.
so on, are going to
Yes.
sequester themselves in a bedroom somewhere to try to take a few courses to get away from
Yeah.
all the family hubbub. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Regent Kroll, if I may follow up on that, we know some out there. Personally, we know some that are in the workplace, post-associate AAS degree kind of scenario. They're out working and they're asking. We know some students who have gone through other BAAS programs, but the scheduling just hasn't worked. We're listening to them. And also, I think over time, what'll happen, and with the nursing program, I think it's a similarity, is that as word gets out and so forth, that we can work with our students, let me say the newer students, not necessarily younger, newer students coming through the program. We would work to try to get them, pipelined in sooner as well, right after their degree for quicker completion. I think the latter would be, in other words, those students who are out there already working in the field would be the case initially, but over time, the pendulum could come back the other way a little bit. Thank you.
Mr. Lowe, did you think of your other question?
I did, and it's two of them. I guess one is, have we done any alumni outreach because that's kind of our first shot. Have we, I don't know how good we are at keeping active emails of alumni, but, that's our initial tranche to market to, is the alumni that are still working around here. So have we done any of that?
That would be a question for Mary McQueen, I think, on the alumni list, or Matthew Busby.
And I don't know if we have it segmented by degree or not, the alumni list or not, so,
I don't know how they do that.
okay.
I don't see Mary here.
Mary's over there, and Matthew's
I think
over
we
there.
can call that
There
one
you
a good
are.
question.
There you are.
That other hat that you wear.
Yeah, okay, this hat, okay. No, we're not tracking that. Here's one of the things that we know about community colleges, and particularly Del Mar College. About 85 to 90% of all the community members have either gone through, or a member of their family have gone through Del Mar College. It's more effective to communicate with the community at large than to try to individually track the changes that happen with people who graduate. So while that's a model that works well for four-year institutions that have a alumni program, normally a fairly large group that invests quite a bit of money in continuing to track all their alumni, we can be more efficient in communicating with our alumni by communicating with the community at large.
Okay, great. Last question. Are there any thoughts on creating some business-centric courses for specific fields? Because, we have advisory committees that are stacked presumably with management-level people in those fields, and while I know, kind of initially, if you're only talking 30, there may be, 2 from each degree field, but theoretically, we could have restaurant management courses taught by restaurant managers. Is that?
that is something that we could potentially do, and we will be drawing in that industry experience. Related to that, we do have a capstone that's at the end of the program that I think could be tailored to very specific industries that that student was already in or perhaps interested in.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Dr. Babley.
One of the greatest advantages that this kind of a degree offers to the workplace is enhancing the DEI initiatives of corporations, because this particular degree at Del Mar will produce economically diverse students who end up in management and OML positions in corporations. That's one thing I think you should position in your degree proposal to the coordinating board, is that you actually enhance the economic diversity of leadership in the workplace, because they traditionally go from universities with kind of monotony in their backgrounds, but beyond race, ethnicity, sex, and different type of diversity, you're actually producing economically diverse workforce. That's something I think you should position into this proposal.
Thank you.
Any other comment? I have a couple of comments. One, I want to build on a couple things that I heard about potential target audience for this degree. Certainly, it's our current students and those who will be finishing over the next year, recent graduates, farther, not so recent graduates. But I think there's a connection with the military that Dr. Escamilla touched on that could be very powerful, especially if we have some way to give credit for competency-based learning that they've done in the military. So I don't know. I'm assuming that's part of your proposal, but I
Yes.
wanted to call that out specifically and ask if it was.
Yes, we'll include that,
Okay.
absolutely.
So I think there's a real potential there for folks that are either local residents working out at the base or folks that are coming in for their couple of year stint here to know that they could get credit for what they're doing out there and potentially leave their assignment here with a bachelor's degree could be very,
Yes.
very powerful.
Another target audience are current staff and faculty. We do have many staff that do want to progress in their degree and they're not able to. We have many staff with associate degrees that would be interested, and they have expressed that interest. And, in the technical areas, we have faculty teaching with associate applied science in some of the areas, and they've expressed great interest in this BAS degree as well.
Which only enhances our instructional capabilities and our accrediting requirements and everything else. Not that they're not strong already, it's just even stronger.
Oh, they're wonderful. They've had sometimes 30 years of experience in their technical fields, and they do outstanding job.
Absolutely.
But they oftentimes want to advance in their degrees as well, their education.
So just to make sure, if they want to do that, we're paying for it, right?
That's why I said, and on our receiving side, because I already anticipated that one. And what we will receive in exchange is a even more qualified faculty member that will enrich our students for generations to come, of which we cannot put a price tag on.
Okay, yeah, 'cause we were whispering over here. We just want to make sure before we chastise anybody for not doing tuition reimbursement, that we do it ourselves.
Just playing with you, Regent Lowe.
So I really appreciate the breadth and depth of questions and comments today. This is exactly what staff needed, was to hear areas of concern, hear areas for clarification. What I did not hear was anybody saying, wait a minute, stop what we're doing. Nope, we don't want to go forward. I'm hearing questions for again, clarification and support and communication and those kinds of things. So I'm going to summarize and say I think you have the support of the board to continue to move forward, and we look forward to the opportunity to look for the approval, the action item at a future point in time. So.
Well, thank you so much, Regent Scott. We really appreciate all of you taking time today to give us even more insight. We really do appreciate that. And we're going to add a few things based upon what you have talked about today. Thank you so much.
Great work. Thank you so much. Right, if anybody has any questions after the fact, be sure and let Dr. Escamilla know, and he'll take that feedback, because sometimes it takes a little bit of time to wrap our head around some of these things.
Do we have to vote on anything or do anything?
This was just staff report
Okay.
today, so discussion only, and they will come back to us when they are ready for us to approve the final. And we approve the final recommendations or the package before it goes to the coordinating board or to SAC-COC. All right, we'll move on to, get a drink of water, Dr. Halcomb. We will move on to, we have a regular periodic instructional program review. Actually, staff goes through it on a regular basis. They report to us periodically, and so this is our periodic instructional program review report.
Yes, each year I bring a report to the board so that you can see the programs that we have reviewed and to briefly discuss our process. Every 5 years, an instructional program has a comprehensive review called the program review or instructional program review. It is faculty-led and supported by administration. The intent is to improve the quality of our programs. We evaluate roughly around a dozen. You'll see that there's more than a dozen when I show you the last slide for this last year, but the average is about a dozen that we do every 5 years. We do the program review also. It does comply with the SAC standards, and you have the SAC standards listed up here as well. So they seem to be very pleased with the process that we do use here at the college. So as I mentioned, the Program Review Committee is primarily composed of faculty within the program where the program resides. And we also include faculty from outside of programs. Sometimes we have a faculty from the neighboring university serve on the committee as well. Sometimes we have a student also on the committee, and their insight can be very valuable. The Office of Planning and Institutional Effectiveness coordinates the program review process, training, and gives guidance. They also have an instruction book that's prepared and distributed at training sessions, or if they don't hand it out, it is online as well. So most people just, find it on the web. The Institutional Research Office, in addition, provides data resources. We need to look at enrollment data, staffing, program demand, degrees awarded, etc. Typically, it takes an entire year to complete this process of review. Once the committee has completed the report, then it goes to the department chair, then it goes to the divisional dean, and then it comes to my office for review and to assign the final recommendation. And we'll talk about those recommendations in just a moment. There are 4 categories. First of all, we look at 7 core criteria when we do a program review. So I'll give just briefly some examples. Review of assessment processes that identifies areas of excellence, areas of needed improvement. We also look at the general education core objectives, program planning objectives, overall process review. The faculty supportive learning, that can include faculty and instructional support activities and student satisfaction surveys. Curriculum integration and mobility. An example here is how easy is it for students to transfer, for example, to our neighboring colleges and universities. Student educational intent, what colleges are students transferring to, and the job placement rates as well. Effective personnel utilization, what are the faculty teaching loads, advising load, and faculty professional development that the faculty are involved in. Cost effectiveness, this can include productivity, fiscal responsibility, and resource utilization, operating budget, and equipment cost. And then we look at strategic advantage. And sometimes that can be considered a unique ability to fill a niche for a demonstrated community need and a student's access to broader fields of study. So these are just a few examples for each of the areas, but we do have a booklet that explains it more if you ever want that, or we can give you the website to visit. Now, there are 4 possible outcomes of the program review: positive, conditional, probationary, or terminate. So a program, if they're positive, they do an interim report in 2 years after receiving that positive notification. And then the program is not comprehensively reviewed again until the next 5-year cycle. If they're put on conditional, then we have to do an annual review to correct the deficiencies. Probationary, that would be, with the intent to terminate a program after 1 year. If the deficiencies are not corrected, terminate. Program has failed to correct deficiencies after conditional and probationary status. So we have program reviews that were turned in 2022. Some were turned in January of 23, but they completed 14 that received positive status this year, and you can see the list of those programs that were comprehensively reviewed. And then last year we had 2 programs that had not been completed in the time in which I reported to all of you. And since that time, physics has received a positive status, and sociology and social work also has received positive status. I do want to note physics has had some struggles, and at one point they were conditional, and so they've been able to correct that. I don't know, many of you weren't here at the time, but we had lost a physics professor, passed away, a very dear professor, and then we had lack of stability of getting a faculty permanently. And physics is a tough area. So now we're on positive, and I just want to highlight that because that's a big achievement to, reach that stage. And then we do have 1 pending review. It's almost done, and that's in web development. So that's the report. Are there any questions about program review or status or anything?
Do we post the written report?
Yes.
Okay. Where are they?
Well, it's in a SharePoint.
Okay.
And so do you need the address? I could give that to Delia.
I think, to me, this is more important than publishing the check register in terms of, public disclosure. So, I mean, I'd love the SharePoint, but I think we should toss it up on the website.
I'm not sure that Regents have access to SharePoint because I've been sent links before, so I don't think
Oh, you
Regents have
don't?
access.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I don't think Regents have access to SharePoint.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I
Okay.
mean,
We can give you an example of something. The SharePoint access is that's a really difficult technological thing to open up to someone who's not an employee.
Right.
But so printed copies for examples of the types of documents that we produce, we can certainly.
So let me ask you your intent in that comment, David, when you say it's almost more important than printing a check register. I think there's an intent here that maybe it's not just about you getting a copy.
well, yeah, I mean, I think showing the public who's footing the bill that we are consistently and thoroughly reviewing each of our programs for effectiveness and showing them the results of that review is more, to me, is more important than, and disclosing that in its entirety, to me, is more important than where we buy office supplies and how much that check was for. You know what I mean? Like, because I think as I hear people talk about our effectiveness as a college, those are the sorts of things they're more interested in than, who got what week in terms of the checks. So, I mean, I think if it's at all possible, we should just, when those are done and they're approved, put them up on our website, so if anybody wants to read one, they can.
Yeah, because even when I was on the state board of teacher education certifications, all our colleges, we posted them, those who are positive, those who are in probation. We don't want people into programs that are may not be successful at that point. I mean, especially if it's their money I just kind of see it that way as a financial thing.
May I respond? Before we get into several comments deeper, I want to say this is a different type of presentation. We have those presentations. We bring those presentations to you all specifically, especially when there's areas that are in less than positive status and so forth. We bring those to you all specifically. This is just a process presentation.
Okay.
This is more of an explanatory kind of thing, describing what we go through generally. And specifically when we take the deeper dives, I mean, one of these slides begins to take a deeper dive and tell you what actual programs are, where, you know, the various status of those programs. But this is a different meeting than we will have as required by our accrediting body and others. So there's more to come besides this, much deeper conversations with specifics.
Well, let me ask if you and perhaps Ms. McDonald might be able to pull a link to our policy related to program review, and if the board wants to take a look at that, and then how, as a result of that review, how information is disclosed publicly. Might be the policy way to have that discussion, as opposed to just, you know, pull this report and send it to us. So let's look at the policy related to program review and the public disclosure of the results.
I don't think I've seen one of these reports, so I don't know
Right.
how in-depth it is, and I'd love to see one, but I mean, I think just as a, you know, as a public, you know, the easiest way to do public disclosure is, you know, just say, hey, this was our internal analysis of this program. You can see what we think is good about it, what we are working on.
Yeah, I think, and it's largely an academic-driven process that is documented in the policy over on the administrative side. So, and mainly coming from and very much tied to our accreditation.
Right, and just to be clear, I in no way want us to be the arbiters of the report.
No.
Like,
We want to show you. We want to show you. We're trying to think of different ways to show you and make sure, and this is the beginning of it. We know that when we put these presentations out, that it'll beg questions and interest and those kinds of things. And these conversations are evidence that we, as a college, are taking these processes to the Board of Regents, our governing board, which we will document and use for future reports to our accrediting body. So there's all kinds of things going on here with the behind the purposes. There's multiple purposes behind this presentation today, but duly noted, and we'll put our heads together and see how we can explain better.
Thank you. Mr. Krull.
I partially agree with Regent Loeb in that I don't know that the full report needs to be published, but I think this is a great marketing tool to say, you know, we've reviewed these, and these programs during this review period got excellent ratings, if you will. You know, so that if somebody is coming in and trying to decide, you know, what I need to go through, or maybe they can look and say, okay, this geology program got an excellent mark, and, you know, I want to really go do that, you know, if they're undecided. But the other question I have is, during this review period, were there any programs that got less than positive status reviews?
Not this year, and I only brought up the one program that was on conditional during one of the previous reports, and now we've been able to bring it up to positive status.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Dr. Halpern. Moving on to our pending business list as provided in your packet. In May, we will have our Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund update, along with a strategic enrollment management report, and we will discuss tuition and our fee schedule for continuing education and workforce. We did tuition for our academic programs in February, and so this will be looking at our fee schedules for continuing education and workforce. And then we do have We have listed here board annual self-evaluation priorities, so that's taking place in not to be TBD, but right now. So we have our board self-evaluation instrument that is out for us to complete by this Friday. You should have received an email from Colleen Allen with ACCT, and if you've not completed that, please do so by Friday, so we would have 100% input on that. And then our retreat on April 28th will use that self-evaluation instrument will be used to inform that retreat. Then we'll also have an update on the new strategic plan in either May or June. Any other questions? There's other items on the rest of the list, but any other questions on pending item list? Seeing none, we will move on to our consent.
Where does the budget fit into this process?
We actually will have a separate budget. We have a separate budget calendar.
Okay.
And that was part of our review in February, Mr. Garcia, is that correct? Did we look at that?
I believe it was February, but I would have to say that our next discussion on the budget will be the month of May. Sorry about that. Yeah.
So all of those, we try to work those budget workshops into our regular meetings as part of staff reports. There are a couple of occasions in August where there'll be some separate meetings and potentially in July. But Delia, why don't you go ahead and recap those meetings that are out, just the full budget calendar for us, if you don't mind, in an email. That way folks can get those on their calendars for the summer. Because some people might be planning to travel this summer. Our pending item list, we have our consent agenda. We have 2 items on consent agenda: approval of minutes for March 7th and acceptance of investments for March 2023. Do either of those items need to be pulled for separate consideration? Seeing none, is there a motion to
Move to
adopt?
approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Cruel. Second by Mr. Loeb. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of adoption of the consent agenda as presented, please raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Our regular agenda will begin with our college's quarterly investment report. Mr. Garcia will introduce our guests.
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Trustees. Today we have Mr. David McElwain from Patterson and Associates, a meter investment management group, who will discuss the college's investment yields, investment performance, and investment strategies.
Thank you. It's good to see you. Thank you all for having me again. Seems like we were just having a meeting not too long ago. But we are now talking about and reviewing the conclusion of your second quarter this year. Let's see here. There we go. And go back up. Let's see. Am I going the wrong way with this?
Way too far.
Let's try this here. Help you out here with this.
A little twist of the,
Yeah.
it's just a left click to page.
Yeah. That's it. Okay? Yeah.
There you go.
Is this the correct page?
Yep, this is the correct page. This will be starting the portfolio review.
Probably better off.
On the down arrow?
Yeah.
Challenging our
Okay.
speed reading capabilities.
It's just left and right.
Okay. There we go. Make sure this looks good. Yes, so this was the portfolio in its entirety at the conclusion of February the 28th. The weighted average maturity of the portfolio stood at about 2/3 of a year, 0.67 years. The weighted average yield continues to come up as we have lower yielding securities roll off and mature and then get reinvested at the higher new rates. About 60% of all the funds are domiciled in the local maintenance or your general funds. The next biggest piece of the pie is the 2018 bond fund. Still has about 14% of the total allocation there. The combination of the 2020 bonds is slightly less than 10% now. The plant fund's at 5%. And then your debt service, interest and sinking funds represented about 12% of all the funds. Right now, there's 26% of the portfolio remains in liquid cash investments, which obviously have the benefit of each Fed rate increase that we've seen. The cash rates have continued to come up. Those can most closely track the Fed's activities. But the preponderance of the funds are maturing, short term. We've got 36% of the portfolio that's going to mature in less than 12 months that is actively invested. And the remaining 38% of the portfolio is currently in the 1 to 2 year maturity range. This is just another representation of the pie chart we looked for. The only difference here is the separation of the interest and sinking funds. The tax interest and sinking was 11%. Revenue INS is 1%. Right here is the pooled funds comparing the second quarter to the first quarter. The far column on the left is the most current quarter. And you can see the increase over the prior quarter, and that's the direct result primarily of the tax deposits coming in. And you can see that the weighted average maturity is lower. The yield has gone higher. And, it's kind of following the benchmark treasury yield. As you can see, the Fed has continued to increase rates. I think since we last discussed the previous quarter end, you had 3 Fed meetings since then. Only 1 or 2 of them have been captured in the report we're looking at. That would have been December's deceleration, where the Fed raised 50 basis points, and then they raised one more time, 0.25 in February. Again, you can see the nice resulting increase in earnings, and that'll continue to take place as, again, the lower yielding investments that had been made in a lower yielding environment continue to get the benefit of reinvesting closer to the 5% levels. Right here is just, again, showing a pie chart of the breakdown of the portfolio. The one on the left is the most recent Q2 versus Q1. And what you'll see is a decrease in the municipal bonds and the agency securities. And that was the direct result of maturities rolling off. You'll see the largest increase was we've been redeploying in short-term investments and taking advantage of the kind of the sweet spot of the curve. And, we're trying to maintain a high degree of liquidity as we spend down the remaining construction funds. So you see the commercial paper went from 2% to 19%. And you can see that the investment pools have gone from 30 to 32%. And the most notable increase there that you'll see is the commercial paper yields from November to February increased from just around 3.5% to over 5.16%. And obviously the local government investment pools, following the Fed's actions, you've seen those rates go from a 3.92 to a little over 4.73. Feel free, if y'all want to pose questions, you can wait or you can pop in right here. We're going to look now, again, I'm going the wrong direction. This is looking strictly at the 2018 bond funds remaining. You can see there was no real spend down in that account from the previous quarter, as the book value and market values remain somewhat static. It's interesting to note we've seen a decrease in the overall treasury yields despite the Fed rate increase, and we'll talk about that a little bit further on in the presentation. But you see the WAM just continues to roll down. The yield remains static because there's been no maturities in the past quarter or reinvestments. And the 2020 funds, you can see there was some spend down from those accounts from the prior quarter, where you saw the book value and the market values. That decrease was just expenditures of roughly $6 million. Again, the WAM continues to come down. The yield is somewhat static as there's been no reinvestment. It's just been active securities rolling down the curve. And this last slide is just depicting the portfolio composition of the construction funds cumulatively. 84% of that's invested in agency securities, and 16% are invested in municipal securities. Again, as those roll off, those were invested pre-Fed rate increases, and as they will roll off, they'll get the benefit of, well, they'll probably get spent down before they'll get along, they're not going to be invested long-term. But what we have had, and I skipped over the economic commentary, is we continue to see the Fed, they kind of changed their tone, and one of the major deals that just happened just after the conclusion of this quarter, but it's worth notating, is right before the Fed's meeting in March, there was a lot of chatter that the Fed was going to go back to possibly a 50 basis point increase, where we had seen the moderation back down to 0.25%. And the week of March the 8th, we saw the 2-year Treasury yield peak at a 5.08%. What happened at the very end of that week, we started hearing chatter of possible bankruptcies. And over the weekend, we saw Signature Bank of New York was seized by the FDIC, followed by the following day on Monday, Silicon Valley Bank Corp. Was also seized by the FDIC, and there was notable, palpable fear in the marketplace. We saw those Treasury yields totally reverse course and drop over a full percentage point. And as of today, that 2-year Treasury yield resides at a 4.05, despite the fact that the Fed did go raise a quarter basis points here in March. So some of the things that we've been tracking and watching, when we talked about core, inflationary pressures, and we've talked about the core PCI and the consumer price index, the CPI, all that's coming down very slowly. It's like turning a ship, as we've discussed before. But the Fed's language definitely pivoted in light of the fears going on with the banking sector. It appears that maybe the dust is settling a little bit. There's been no further bankruptcies following these two. But the Fed was much more guarded in their language. It appears that they may go 1 to 2 more times this year, but their language has gone to more moderation for the remainder of the year. And I think what the bond markets are telling you is we've seen that inversion steepen to the downside, despite the shorter end of the curve being at a higher rate. We will see, the question on this slide was, how high and how long is the Fed going to go? And I think we've seen, we're looking at this in the rearview mirror. I think we're approaching the 9th inning of what the Fed is going to do on the increase side. And I think what the bond markets are telling us very clearly is there's going to be a seesaw where the Fed's next step will be to address the slowing economy and more than likely start to cut those rates back down again on the short end, which will, again, start to reduce cash rates. But the interesting and kind of complex environment, if you have a longer duration opportunity, is, you're investing well below what the cash and pool rates are and money market rates at the moment. But as the Fed starts to embark upon a rate cut cycle, there will be some need to strategically find some spots further out the curve. Again, the current rate hiking cycle has been the fastest thing we've seen in modern history. We've raised now a full 5 percentage points almost here in less than 12 months versus the previous high rate hike cycle in the past 40 years. In 2004, we went up a little over 4% in about a 2.5-year period. And then this is that interesting depiction of the yield curve. The one at the very bottom was where we were fully 1 year ago at the end of your second quarter. That was the a normal sloped yield curve, but the basis there was next to zero. The 6-month yield was, barely above a 0.0. The 2-year yield was even, barely 1% at that stage, not even. And now today, you see the orange line above, the lighter orange line was where we were in October before the last few Fed rate hikes took the blue line higher. but you see that the blue line goes lower on the longer-term horizon. So as we speak today, the highest yield on the Treasury curve is about 3 to 4 months. A 4-month Treasury bill is right at 5%. A 6-month is 4.95. A 12-month T-bill is about a 4.70. And then the 2 years back at a 4.05. The 3 years about a 3.80. And a 5-year yield is about a 3.54, which is almost a full 1.5% below a 4-month T-bill. So it's kind of a complex environment. It's not one that's going to remain for too much longer, but like I said, we fully anticipate, based on this yield curve, that the writing's on the wall and the Fed will start to seesaw back the other way and cut rates again.
If I may. Too much longer, what does that mean? What do you think that means?
Well, I think based on where, if you just look at just plot out the yields on the Treasury bills, for example, I think if the 4-month T-bill is pretty much the highest and the 6-month, they're almost neck and neck, I think that the markets are telling you that there's probably going to be a move by the Fed in the opposite direction, or some language signaling that they're done with the increases. And I think that more than likely, there's going to be a pivot within around 6 months, 12 months at the latest. But there's a great deal of money positioning itself further out the curve, pushing prices lower. They're bidding up the price of those securities, which is pushing yields lower. So longer-term money managers and bond funds are stepping into these things hand over fist, because it's way higher than we've seen for about 20 years. And again, I think we're approaching the 9th inning of the game as far as what the Fed can do on the increase cycle. But were there any other questions specifically regarding Del Mar's portfolio? And I know, David, you brought up the question of, reserve funds, and I think we could
Yeah, it would have
talk
made us a
little
lot of
more.
money if we'd bought some 20 years last time.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're somewhat restricted by the Public Funds Investment Act, but if there are truly some embedded funds, inside the pooled funds that would be very much reserve in nature and not, needing to be subject to some budgetary cycles, I think, we could definitely look at maybe reconstructing and giving a little bit more flexibility to the investment policy, if we can ascertain that there are some funds that can be positioned further out the curve, rainy day funds or contingency funds. But it certainly wouldn't be a preponderance of the college's funds, but it's definitely worth a conversation.
Any other questions for Mr. McElwain? This is an action item, so do we have a motion to approve the college's quarterly investment report?
So moved.
Dr. Adami makes a motion, Dr. Beverly seconds it. Any discussion on that motion? Is there any public comment on that motion? If not, all those in favor of approving the college's quarterly investment report, please raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much for being with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Mr. Garcia is going to run through the college's quarterly financial report.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Okay. So the financial condition of the college is in sound footing based on the trending operating revenue and expenses for the 6 months ending February 2023. Our total financial revenues of $87.8 million is reasonably on track relative to the planned budget. In addition, the year to date, in addition to that, our year-to-date revenue to budget rate of 76% is relatively consistent with prior year's rate of 74%. Pivoting to our operating expenses, the total operating expense valued at $51 million with a spending rate of 44% is consistent with last year's spending rate for the same period of 44%. If there are no questions on our revenue and expense report, I'll move on to the balance sheet. Okay. All right, experience some minor technical issues. Yeah, here we go. Thank you. Okay. The financial, The college remains on solid financial footing to weather most business interruptions, with the reported liquidity levels for the month of February valued at $87.2 million. This total value of cash and investments are sufficient to pay its current obligations, valued at $14.5 million. In addition, the reported cash and investment position is well above the board financial reserves requirement of approximately 3 months of current operating of its current operations, that is valued at $28.7 million. Moving on to liabilities. The net pension and deferred inflow pension liabilities are the two main causes for the year-over-year decrease in our total liabilities category of $9.5 million. The reported change in the net pension and deferred inflow liabilities is mainly attributed to better than expected investment earnings, offset by changes in the actuarial assumptions. These actual assumptions include the discount rate and the annual healthcare trend rates used for determining the present value of these liabilities. Moving on to fund balance. There are two main components to the reported fund balance, with a combined value of $10.9 million. The first category reported as fund balance reduction due to GASB 68 and 75, valued at $87.5 million. This fund category is a constitutional trust fund that is administered by the respective board of trustees of the employee retirement system and the teachers retirement system. The remaining dollars or the remaining fund categories represents the fund balance that is administered and managed by Del Mar College and our Board of Trustees, with a net value, positive value, of $76.7 million. This fund balance is net of the 2022 surplus of $833,000 that was transferred during the year to the plant fund. Madam Chair, this concludes my presentation. If there's any questions, I will definitely take them now.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Garcia? Entertain a motion to accept the college's quarterly financial report as presented. Dr. Belly makes a motion. Mr. Kelly makes a second. Any discussion on that item? Is there any public comment on that item? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the college's quarterly financial report as presented, raise your hand. All those opposed, same sign. That motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Agenda item number 5, discussion and possible action regarding the approval of a 2016 Oso Creek campus construction project change order number 14. Mr.
Regents.
Travis.
So if you don't have it on your calendar, April 21st, 10 o'clock in the morning, we'll see you at Oso Creek for our ribbon cutting ceremony. We're looking forward to it. The campus is ready. Faculty and staff are there. Everything's going well. This change order is for $141,064.17. You have the list of items that it includes within this change order. We have building plaques for the buildings, exterior doors, cylinders and cores, main lobby, window tinting, privacy film in all the buildings, miscellaneous electrical changes. The city utility bills, we believe we have those all changed over now, and additional privacy film. And so this is all being funded with the bond funds.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Strabos? Is there a motion to approve change order number 14 as presented? Motion by Dr. Dami, second by Ms. Averett. Is there a question? Any questions? Is there any public comment on this item? Is this our last change order, Mr. Strabos?
We're really close to the end. We're really close, really close.
We're going to open it and still maybe have one more cleanup change order?
There's always one last thing that has to be done.
I think the last change order will have some pocket lint in it.
So in our business, we have what's called the law of asymptotic completion, which states that in any given payment period, a contractor can only finish half the remaining work. So we will stop getting change orders when we stop paying change orders. And it may be that there's other work to be done, but they're just done, so.
They're ready to move on to the next project. The good news is it's right next door, literally. They're working on the police academy.
Right, so, they'll scamper off when we say no more.
But again, these are all within the budget.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We didn't vote. I asked for public comment. I think there's no public comment. All those in favor of approval of this change order number 14, please raise your hand. Any opposed, same sign. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Stravos. All right, we are going to go into closed session at this time. Please allow me to read the closed session language. We're going into closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.089 regarding the network security assessments or deployments related to information resources technology or network security information or the deployment or specific occasions for implementation of security personnel, critical infrastructure, security devices with possible discussion, action, open session, and Texas Government Code 551.074 regarding the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, dismissal, or public officer or employee, including the annual evaluation of the college president, board self-evaluation with possible discussion, action, open session, and consultation under 551.071 regarding pending or contemplated litigation, settlement offer, possible discussion, action, open session with seeking of legal advice with counsel on pending legal or contemplated matters or claims with possible discussion and action, open session. The time is 2:50 p.m. We'll take a few-minute break and meet over in our executive session room. All right, Regents, we have come back from our closed session at 3:40 p.m. There is no action coming out of closed session. We'll look at our calendar for the upcoming months. As we stated earlier, as Mr. Strabos reminded us earlier, our Oso Creek campus grand opening event is next Friday at 10 a.m. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be wonderful. I'm sure there's going to be a few culinary arts sampling as well. So it's going to be a great day. And then our board visioning retreat will be on the 27th with dinner the night before. For those that can attend the service awards, they will be here in the La Retama room. Excuse me, not here. They'll be in our Heritage campus in the Retama room starting at 8:30 a.m. for breakfast. And then our regular board meeting day on May 9th. We will have our board development retreat on the 18th, Thursday the 18th, and then graduation on Friday the 19th. Please let Delia know if you're planning to attend graduation so she can have the regalia ready. And then our June board meeting will be on Tuesday, June 13th. If there is no other business to come before the board, we are adjourned at 3:42 p.m.